Today I'm going to show you how to make a backsplash for your kitchen. As you can see, I have a little cubby hole that's not very exciting, so I'm going to be adding it to it. You can do the same project and use the same design for the whole backing of your kitchen counter to give it some style and to make it not so plain. I'm going to show you how to go ahead and do it. I've already cut out my boards. I measured the space that I'm going to be covering. And what I did was I glued two pieces of styrofoam together. I'm using some old styrofoam from another project, so yours should be one solid piece across. But this one, like I said, I used some scraps, so it isn't as pretty, but I'll fix that up when I cover it with cement. So you should have your two pieces thick. That way it allows enough space to make some depth and to not make it so flat. So what I'm going to do is I found a picture on the internet of a kitchen that I really liked, and I'm going to try to emulate the style it used. You can go ahead and have a picture for reference open or print it out so you have something to go by. I also have other videos up showing you how to do different styles of rock for backgrounds and for any project. So first step is I'm going to go ahead and draw it out. Now this pattern that I'm using is not a standard brick pattern. It's got smaller rocks. And it's got various shapes, and they're not lined up in a row. So just be creative and make it however you like. Now that we've got our pattern drawn out, we're going to go ahead and carve it. This pattern that I'm using has some rocks that are sticking out at different levels. So what we're going to do is first indent the ones that we want sunken in. That's why we use the two pieces of styrofoam instead of just one, so we have enough space to create that dimension. Now my tools that I'm going to be using is a kitchen knife and a Dremel tool. If you don't have a Dremel tool, you can use a kitchen knife. It will be a little more difficult, and you won't get such neat, clean lines out of it, but it will work. So I'm going to go ahead and start carving. As you can see, I've basically carved out every other square. That just makes it easier. If you do the ones next to each other, you're not going to be able to know where the squares end. So what I'm doing is just like I showed you, using a combination of my kitchen knife and my Dremel tool, I'm carving out and then smoothing out the sections. I'm going to go ahead and continue and finish the whole thing, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. Now I've finished carving out every other piece. What I've done is sunken them into about the level of the first piece of styrofoam. You don't want to go lower than that. If not, the piece will be weak when you're done. You can risk cracking it when you move it around or install it. So, as you can see from an angle, you can see about how deep I went. Now, the thing you need to make sure of is you want to define the edges of the other bricks. So, you make sure and go in a straight line. That way you have that definition. For my next step, I'm going to be carving out the other pieces that are raised. I'm going to make them various depths. I don't want to leave any smooth like this, or else they won't look real when we coat it and it's finished. So go ahead and with your kitchen knife, cut along the line, and just cut in just a little bit. You want to make sure it's enough that it's going to show up, because when we do coat it, it is going to cover up some of the definition. So you want to do it a little more exaggerated than what you want the final product to look like, but you don't do it to the level of the other ones either. Make sure you have nice straight defined edges. It helps if you turn it upright, since it will be installed upright. You'll get to know what it looks like. See along here it's not that defined. I'm going to use my Dremel tool and make it a nice straight defined line. I know the styrofoam doesn't show up that well on camera. Let's see, if I bring it up closer to you, maybe you'd be able to tell. You can see the depth there. When we coat it, it will be much more visible. So go ahead and continue to do that. You want them all various depths. You don't want it flat. Go ahead and do that until the whole piece is complete. On some of the bricks, you'll find that it's kind of hard to go ahead and make different levels without them blending in. So a trick that I use, since these are stones and they're not going to be just perfectly flat, on some of them where they're going to meet up, just carve in a little bit, make it a little bit rounded in the texture, and that way, see, it allows for an edge for us to work with. So now, when I take off the front layer of that, they're very different. Also, when you're carving them, you don't have to make them perfectly smooth or perfectly flat. As you can see on this one, see how I have it kind of curved inward? Like I said, this is stone, so it is supposed to be different. It isn't supposed to be perfectly flat. So go ahead and continue that until you have your whole piece carved out. We're almost done carving off the rest of the bricks, and one technique I wanted to show you was to make sure and keep your grout defined. Now, if you don't have a Dremel tool, you can use a kitchen knife, or personally what I do is I just use my fingernails and I just scratch in there to make sure that they're defined. It'll help you later on when you're coating it with cement, and it'll also create the definition. Now, if you've got a couple bricks like I do that are just sticking out just a bit too much, go ahead and shave those off now. And again, you do want a difference. Probably just not as much as I had there. So go ahead and finish up by adding the grout to all the bricks and reducing them to the level you need. And here's the finished back piece. I'm going to go ahead and prepare my cement, and we'll start with coating.